welcome to the actor and the engineer.
I wish there was.
My
a
name
way
is Paul
for it to-
James. I'm the actor.
Yeah, I've all stepped on your name there. Who are you again? I know I recognized you somewhere.
You know, some days I wish people could actually see who you are past the podcast or before the podcast, because you thought you were funny right there. Tell them what you did. Tell them what you did.
Well, I mean, what do you mean? Oh, well, we were talking about how, like, if you talk to somebody, you can't remember their name. You know, it's like you get to a certain point where you keep talking to them and you can't ask them their name because you're in such a weird position where you have such a conversational relationship. And then, of course, they would assume that you know their name, but then you're put in a weird position where you're like, I have no idea what this person's name is. So you have to, like, find somebody else and, like, figure it out from them, I guess. That's what I've done in the past. So.
And that's the cute part of the story. And then we do the countdown for the actual podcast, and Josh decides to go 5, 4, 3. And he knows that it makes me a little anxious when I see the numbers, and that's what he chooses to do.
Well, I wish there was a way to not do that. I'm Josh Knapp, by the way. I'm a broadcast engineer. And I wish there was a way that we could just, like, not do that, but our screen recording software is that way.
So your choice is to emphasize it and overplay it to where I'm going,
I just don't like awkward things. Like I need to either, like, you know, hang a hat on it or do something to make it either more awkward or you know, not recognize. I don't know. It's like I have to recognize the awkwardness. I have to say, like, this is awkward. I can't not say that.
and that's why I think on some level you might make a pretty good actor, because that right there is called a choice. But your choice is based on myself having to respond to you hanging your coat on 5, 4. This is the person who has to say hi. Anyway, enough of that. Let's move on.
Okay, well, we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is James Gunn's last foray in the Marvel universe, because he's now God of all DC.
Master of the DC universe.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I'm happy about it.
He's bringing a lot of his DC cronies into this movie, though. I noticed that, you know, I mean, it's like if you got good actors, why not use them? Like Chukwudi Iwuji is the High Evolutionary in this movie. And, you know, he was one of the main characters in Peacemaker, which was awesome on HBO Max. And then also he brought his wife over, whose name is, can't pull it.
That's his wife?
Yeah.
Who is the woman in Peacemaker?
Yes.
And also the comms operator in Guardians of the Galaxy?
Correct.
Well, James Gunn is a lucky man. That's a talented woman, and she's quite stunning looking.
Yeah, she's very good looking, and she's also talented. Jennifer Holland is her name. And so
you just said the other actor's name, which I'm not even going to attempt for another year.
Yeah.
But you stumbled over Jennifer, or what's her last name?
Holland.
She's beautiful.
Yeah, she is. And she's great in Peacemaker. And it's not like she has a huge part in this movie, but, you know, he's bringing everybody along. So that's kind of cool. Steph and I rewatched Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy 2, a little bit of Thor, the most recent Thor, Love and Thunder. And then we kind of started the Christmas special, but it was, I mean, I'd already seen it fairly recently. So what did you feel about, like, going into the movie? Like, were you excited or trepidatious?
No, I mean, how could you go in without thinking you're going to have a good time? So
Yeah.
how daunting could it be? It can't be. Let me ask you a question. Let me turn the tables really quick, and then I'll go back to what you asked me. Was it valuable? Did you watch 1 and 2 before you saw 3, or was it valuable to watch 1 and 2 again before 3?
Yes. So character-wise, it was, but it also kind of, like, ruined the movie for me, because seeing those first 2 movies, especially Guardians of the Galaxy 1, like, after seeing those 2 movies, very close to watching this movie, I saw all the places where he was working really hard and trying to pay off characters, trying to give characters things to do, and trying to keep the story moving along.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Sorry,
I got a little.
That was
clump in
tough
my
for
throat.
me though. I mean, because I wanted this to be like they're my favorite Marvel movies, or the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. They are the ones that we go back to the most, and to me they're the most fun. They also aren't encumbered by Earth. Like they've got I thought it was gonna when we talked about that first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I wasn't necessarily that excited about it because I'd never heard of any of the characters in the movie. Not that I'm a huge Marvel comic book fan, but I was like, how are they gonna do this and make it interesting and make it some with some semblance of realism, or character based dynamics. When we're just flying all over and it's not like it's a Star Trek movie or anything like that. I just didn't know how they were gonna ground it or what the tone was gonna be, and the tone was perfect in the first movie that James Gunn struck, and it still had a lot of emotion, but at the same time, like it was light and flighty and just a lot of fun. And this movie really leaned into character, which is good, but it also leaned into high emotions, and to me there were less and less of the comedic side of things. And we already know so much about the characters by now that Drax is a totally different character than he was in the first movie. In certain cases they do play on the same kind of like Drax can't handle metaphors, things like that, but we know so much about Drax that we're not learning about him anymore. And that was the fun part. We're learning about Gamora. We're learning about Drax. We're learning about Rocket. We're learning about Groot. And we already know it all. So, did they do enough to engage us as an audience to make it interesting? I don't know.
Yeah, it's the question. I agree with everything that you just said. Let's start with the positive. It's fun. It's colorful. It's bright. It's epic battle after epic battle, which could lead into a little bit of a negative aspect, in my opinion, because sometimes it's a little, I always say too much. I'm not sure if that's the right description. It's some of the fight sequences are convoluted to the point where you're like, what's going on here? But it's still, those organic suits that Nathan Fillion, yeah,
yes.
wears, and his character, his tone is what the movie is lacking in the last act of the movie, the third act of the movie. That said, I mean, if you're going to just want to have fun and get on a roller coaster ride and the hill's just not as high as it used to be, or the circle dip and all the curves and everything like that, it's still fun. It's still interesting. Some of the banter between the characters, I thought it was interesting how Gamora's story intertwined. I was like, how are they going to do that? Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting how Nebula has grown to the point where she actually shows emotion. There are a few things that are going to happen when Drax says dancing's for idiots, that later on this is going to happen. And the fact that certain things happen later on, I like the backstory with Rocket. I enjoyed learning about that, and that makes sense that they would delve into that. I was a little bit confused about some stuff though. Like, I thought Rocket and Groot were like best friends. When did it become Rocket and Peter? I didn't know Peter considered Rocket his best friend. And I mean, it's not like Shakespeare or anything. It's not that deep, but the interpersonal relationships is what keeps this Marvel universe grounded. So I was like, why is Peter so invested? Yeah, Rocket's his friend. Yeah, Rocket's his buddy. He saved his life a couple times and vice versa and so forth and so on. They saved the universe together, although Peter almost wrecked it completely, which they make fun of in this one, which was great. I thought you needed to, put, right on the nose type stuff with that. But so I was confused about a lot of the choices that he made. But overall, I mean, the ultimate gauge is coming out of it, can I not wait to see it again? Mm-hmm. And literally wrote down my thoughts this time because it was starting to dissolve hours after I saw it. So I know that didn't really start with the positive. That was kind of intertwined with some negative stuff. But I mean, it's a popcorn movie. What do you want? But we've also, like you said, had the expectation and the bar set this high, and now it's floating to try to reach up to that high. I think Marvel needs to take a hiatus. Just stop for a little while, Get some distance and perspective. I mean, they're not going to.
No,
It's a
they're not going
juggernaut.
to.
No, it's a juggernaut, and I understand that too. But I just think that it's like, you ever taken a picture and everybody's like, "Oh, you look so great in this picture. This is a great picture," and you're like, "Oh, I don't like that picture." And then like 5 years later, you look at it and you go, "Oh, that's a great picture." You don't have perspective of yourself. You can't see yourself clearly. And I'm wondering if that's what's happening. Now, I don't like the big conversation of Ant-Man's killing Marvel, the 5th phase, the 11th phase, whatever phase we're in right now. No one's killing it. I just think that we are a little burnout and a little ready for a rest. And that might actually benefit DC, because now DC is rebooting it, or soft reboot, whatever the heck that means, with James Gunn at the helm. And so maybe these characters from DC will seem that much more interesting to us because we don't know them as well, and so forth and so on. I don't know. I don't think this movie deserves to be slammed, and I don't think it deserves to be criticized. It's just, I have some questions about it that I'm like, I'm not sure what happened there. Somebody needs to help me explain. And I'm not sure if there was so much going on that I was losing track of what I was supposed to pay attention to. And I don't know if that's me or the movie or what, but overall, I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
So,
well, and as a third movie, we've got a well-established, what a Guardians of the Galaxy movie is. And we've also seen them peppered into, obviously, Infinity War, Civil War, and they weren't in Civil War. Infinity War, Endgame, and Thor. So like we've seen a few things, peppered in other movies. But ultimately, when I thought going into Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I was like, okay, how is James Gunn gonna change things and kind of like just make them do this, but do it more, like increase it, take it up by, 10%, 20%. And he did that. Like just the opening, the credit sequence of the first Guardians of the Galaxy was "Come and Get Your Love." The opening credit sequence of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was the ELO song, Mr. Blue Sky. Like, and it was awesome, amazing. It's totally different, not the same, still a character dancing, but totally different. I mean, it's part of the narrative. There's things that come. They bring those animals back, even in the third. Those creatures back in Volume 3. But I just wanted to. I wanted. I wanted to see like how they were going to not evolve. I didn't really want it to evolve. Maybe that's the problem. I don't want it to evolve. I want to get another one of those. And this movie really leaned into. I mean, it still leaned into daddy issues, or origin stories, and it was Rocket's origin story as opposed to the origin story of Peter Quill in the second one. But the hardest part for me was seeing all of those animals, and like I'm not a Benji person. I'm not an Old Yeller person. I don't watch Flipper. It's anything with animals, like I will stay away. I've never seen Free Willy. I don't really even know if the whale gets hurt or anything, but I don't want to know. So that was the hardest part for me. And then the Layla, or what's her name? Leela, played by Linda Cardellini, by the way, which is kind of like
sweet.
But there's multiple people in this movie. Judy Greer does a voice of the pig, the mechanical pig thing. She's Ant-Man's ex-wife. So I mean, don't they have other actors that, like, what are we doing?
I mean, you just said it yourself. When you have a trusty allied, why not? And you know their language, and I mean, it makes sense. I see it happen all the time in the local theater, but it also makes sense because look at what you get.
I guess.
I
mean,
sure.
Me,
I don't think they're stopping people from breaking in. I just think that they are stopping their questions. Like, okay, who would have ever thought that? What's her name? Judy Greer. Yeah. That she could play that that pig voice thing, and I don't know if it's altered or whatever, but I don't know what they're doing there. But that's probably something that excited James Gunn. Oh, let's see if she can do that.
Well, I mean, she's in Archer too. Like, she does a voice in Archer, and I mean, I love her in Archer. But it's not that I look at Judy Greer and I'm like, oh, she would never be a good voice actor. I'm just saying, like, that's the cool part about the MCU for me. You know, as an engineer, I'm like, oh, well, this is perfect. This is like an ecosystem, and each actor plays a role, and that is their role. Like, if Robert Downey Jr. waltzed in there and played Reed Richards, you'd be like, what?
Well, but back in the day, Chris Evans played the Human Torch, and now he's Captain America. Nobody's thought twice about it.
But it's not the MCU. I mean, they purposefully, after Iron Man blew up and they made the Incredible Hulk, and they're like, we're gonna do something. Well, I mean, even at the end of Iron Man, you had Samuel L. Jackson playing Nick Fury saying the Avengers Initiative. So like they had that kind of like a foresight to where, if this works, then we're gonna lay some breadcrumbs for something that could be big, and then they made it what it is. But I don't know, I didn't want to harp too much on that. It's just like, I don't know, I just feel like maybe there's somebody else out there that would be maybe just as good. I don't know, but she was very good. Linda Cardellini was very good. I'm glad she's able to.
Well, they're also voice acting in this. They're not face acting. So maybe that's the big difference, or maybe that's the distinction, But why not? I mean, apply it to your own job. People who have certain skills in what you do, and you rely on them. Would you call Stan instead of Fred because Stan's available and hasn't been working as much as Fred? No, you call Fred because he is the one that you rely on. So it's kind of the same thing. It's somebody you rely on. I see what you're saying, but doesn't bother me.
So you're looking at it from like the quality of the acting, and I guess I'm looking at it from like because I'm not an actor, I'm looking at it from like man, you should give somebody a shot, or whatever. But I mean, it's okay. I mean, shoot, Sean Gunn is the on-set Rocket who like crawls around, and then he's also Kraglin. So, which that was enough. I'm glad that Kraglin is in the movie, and I'm glad that he's a part of the Guardians, but he's definitely not. He wasn't like the part of this. It felt like they really wanted to keep the original Guardians together in this movie, but also lay the groundwork for the end of the movie, which, I mean, no spoilers right now, but lay the groundwork for the end of the movie where there may potentially be another configuration of the Guardians. So that, I think, is, was wise on their part, but, where you're kind of peppering in Cosmo and Kraglin, but also both have a key role by the end. They just don't get a lot of screen time. So, I mean, it's I was watching one of the YouTube videos that I watched. The Screen Crush was talking about it. They talked about how the James Gunn uses a storytelling device where he ends up going, he uses flashbacks, and he intercuts between flashbacks and current day or present day. But the stakes and the danger, the level of danger in the flashback and the present day is juxtaposed. So, when things are dangerous for young Rocket when he's in his cage, then we see funny stuff present day. And when there's some serious stuff going on present day, we see them, figuring out what their names are, in their cages and just having a happy, fun time. So, I mean, it when you look at it from a storytelling standpoint, like that's some next level stuff. And I think that's one of the only ways to keep this story moving forward, because there, in a lot of ways, it just doesn't seem like there's a lot there, for me at least.
I think
as far as like the bad guy and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that I have a bunch of questions about. Maybe we'll get to it, maybe we won't. But I think it goes back to, okay, so the first movie and second movie have a tone. So does this. And the tone is unusual to what we've seen in the superhero genre up to that point. Because is Ragnarok after one Guardians or before?
After.
Okay. All right. So yet again, another tonal switch with Ragnarok. So But the themes in the first movie and the themes in the second movie are stronger and follow through the movie more consistently than in this third movie. I think that's ironically what some of the issues with the third movie is or are. The first movie, of course, is an origin story and some of Peter Quill's story and the bonding of friendship and a bunch of misfits coming together, and there is fish out of water. I mean, there's theme after theme after theme. Growing up not where you're supposed to grow up, growing up somewhere else, growing up with a parent you don't want, blah blah blah. The second one, of course, is daddy issues, father-son issues, but not only that, but Nebula with her backstory, if you will, and then them actually figuring out what to do with this big problem that is a person, that's a planet, so forth. There's a ton of themes there. This one, it seems like the themes are one or two sentences long, and then that's it. And then he played on it for the rest of the time. Yes, a creature that wants to just be who they are and not be transformed into something grotesque, for lack of a better term. A creature, an existence in this world, this galaxy that is being held captive and doesn't want to be, and is this cute, innocent thing at first, and then their eyes are open. So there's a lot of themes going on, but they don't seem to be as strong. And that strong theme in those strong themes in the first two movies helps the lighthearted banter and quips zing just a little bit better, because you're over there learning things about yourself via the relationships of the characters. And so when they start quipping, and Peter's great at it and Gamora's great at it, and Drax in his dry humor because he doesn't understand metaphors, whatever it may be, it just zings louder. It seems like the humor is spread further apart from each other. And that might be okay if you're not used to it being every other sentence from this group. And maybe the MCU is taking that whole lighthearted Iron Man quip thing that people have been having a problem with, and DC's tried to imitate it, so people say. Maybe they're trying to tone that down a little bit, but they've chosen the wrong movie to start with that.
Yeah.
They've chose the wrong movie. They should have started that with Ant-Man. But because it seems to be the humor in Ant-Man seems to be pushing the boundary in the opposite direction, to the point of eye rolling. Okay, yeah, we get it. You're funny. You're clever. 7 holes. Right? Okay, funny. Although that was funny. So it's interesting because the first one I've seen twice. I think the second one I've seen twice. I can't remember if I've seen the Christmas special, and I enjoyed them, and I can't wait to watch them again. This one I have a different feeling about it. I want to see it again because I want to fill in the holes that I feel were left out on the first viewing, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I don't know where you want to go, but I have some questions, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, I do want to talk about Gamora because, James Gunn had an issue because Gamora is dead in the, in Endgame, and that is something that you can't get away from. I mean, they deal with it in Endgame by bringing her back. But as the 2014 Gamora, before she's even met anybody. So then that's actually, leaning into that, but then figuring out a way to get her with them was, I was believable. I didn't have a problem with that. And
I thought it was well done.
And it gives her another angle to play that character, because, you already had, even I just rewatched the second one, he talks about the Sam and Diane aspect of their relationship. Will they, won't they? Oh, well, you don't do that because, you can't do that in the second season because then nobody will watch, because that's what everybody's watching for, to see if Sam and Diane get together. So that we already know that they're together by the end of volume 2. They have something, it's that unspoken thing is what they say. They have this attraction to each other, and they're gonna try to make it work, try to make something happen. But you lose all that, in Infinity War, Endgame, and then so you have to deal with that a little bit in Thor, but mainly what they're doing here is he's confronted with her as the Ravagers, as she gets sent by the Ravagers to go to, handle this business. So I thought that was a good choice, and I thought that gives those, it actually gives the environment for these quips, because the only way that Peter Quill can handle the emotions of being around someone who he loves, who doesn't even know him, is to be dismissive and to be snarky and to be just kind of like lip pouty, and and it works. And those are some of the funniest parts of the movie. And they do, you're right, they do address directly the fact that he almost, ruined the whole universe by, being mad. And
he says it.
Yeah, he does. But that's what I mean. That's that's the big thing. And I mean, that movie needed that. You couldn't have had, you had to make the audience think that they had the group of Avengers had the ability to beat Thanos at that moment. So you had to make sure that, the stakes were there, but then you had to figure out a way to make it so that Thanos was going to get away. So, that was going to get away with the gauntlet. So, yeah, that right there was, I don't know. I thought they did that really well. And I thought that Zoe Saldana did a great job of figuring out how to like disconnect, but then also not just be completely, she was what her character was at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy. And then she starts to soften up, and she starts. I think the biggest and best laugh comes with the best emotional moment too, when he's confessing to her how much in pain he's been since they're no longer together and what they had and blah 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 blah, and the whole thing about we can hear all that. Yes.
That's great. And then the red means green and the green means, and he's like, how the hell can anybody follow that? And who's it? Drax that says, well, that's just basic, right? He says something along the lines.
Everybody's that Mantis is that way too. She's like, that's fine.
Yeah. And they're all like green. Yeah. And they're all in agreement that it's completely understandable what she's talking about. So I laughed a couple times after that.
Well, and you saw
that moment.
You saw their spacesuits, right? I mean, that's totally 2001.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you can't really make it any more of an homage. I mean, at that point, it's just ripping off.
Yeah, so, with the Guardians of the Galaxy colors. Yeah. So, the multicolors of the world. So, yeah, there's a lot of great things going on. I don't know where you want to go next, but I have some questions.
Sure.
And I'm like, did I miss it? Did I not understand something? What is happening here? So first of all, my first statement about Adam Warlock. I've heard so much about this character. I don't know the Marvel universe as well as I do DC, and I know some stuff about the DC universe. I read more DC stuff and I watch more DC stuff repeatedly than I do the Marvel, with the exception of Civil War, which I will watch again and again and again. It came on the other night. I spent 20 minutes, and I was like, no, stop. Go. Move on. Anyway, so been hearing about Adam Warlock, hearing about him. I read a little bit about him. Somebody was discussing it years ago. He has something to do with the original comic book that Endgame is based on, blah, 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 blah. None of that matters. What matters is, why did James Gunn decide to put him in this movie? He is not at all a necessity for this film. If you took him and Debicki out of the, and I mean no disrespect, I just can't say her first and last name together without messing. Yeah, that's good for you. I mess it up and I respect her. I want to get one of the names right. Elizabeth Debicki. See? Okay. I can't do it. Elizabeth Debicki. Yeah, it's weird. Okay, I'll get it. Anyway, I love her. Mm-hmm. And, I like Will Poulter. I like him. I don't have a problem with him. But why are they in this movie? Here's why I don't understand it. Okay, so he was created, and she was created by the evolutionary guy?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but those people, those good-looking golden people, those really attractive, good-looking, well-shaped gold-looking people are not perfect enough for this planet. He wants but do they address that in this movie?
Yeah, well, they're kind of dumb actually, but at the same time, the reason why the Adam Warlock is how he is is like super dumb is because it's like she put him in, it's like he's a loaf of bread. She put him in the oven and she took him out too soon, and he's all like doughy and not completely risen, you know?
Okay.
That's
so when
yeah.
she explains that, is that where the evolutionary says something to her along when he's grabbing her face, which bugs the hell out of me, that every villain has to grab a woman's face and do all that weird shit stuff. Sorry. Stuff that the villain does. Okay, we get it. Stop manhandling women in movies. I'm kind of done with that. We get it. You're superior to her. Although that was kind of funny that she's so tall and he's so short that he had to get a little stepping stone, right? Are you making a note of what time frame it was that I just cussed?
Maybe not.
Yeah,
Come on
yeah,
now.
I think that's exactly what you're doing. Sorry. Sorry, editor. So at that moment when he's talking about that, he created her. So does he explain why he still needs to create more creatures that are perfect because they aren't? And she decides to create Adam Warlock and he doesn't know about it? Or what? Like I can't follow any of that.
I mean, I think that there are shots of other pods, like Adam Warlock's pod that we see at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. There are other shots of pods in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 that you see, and even in this movie you see like there's other pods. It's not like that one pod is like super unique. Like that's how they are made. That's how the whatever supreme beings or whatever they're called. That's how they're made. They are they're birthed in pods. I think she even says that in the second movie. But she just, I don't know, made some fancy pod or something for him and trying to like make the best of what they can make. But now that we know that the High Evolutionary actually made them, I don't know if the High Evolutionary kind of started, it's kind of like had like a starter kit of the Sovereign. That's what they're called. He had like a starter kit of the Sovereign, put him on a planet and said like, go be fruitful and multiply. And then they just did that. Like it seems like that's what he does. He makes a bunch of different worlds and then gets them going. And then he doesn't necessarily like say like, okay, I'm going to make you and put you in here. And he doesn't do that.
But why doesn't he say that? Why doesn't he say something? Because, okay, so I didn't miss anything and I understood everything because I understand everything you're saying to me right now. I remember all of that. Why didn't he look at her and say, just like when I created you, but yet you've turned out whatever, so I need to keep creating. The motivation to keep creating, it's lacking something because he's created this sovereignty that looks like a perfect culture on some kind of level. It doesn't, I mean, we've not seen, obviously they have anger issues and, they get upset when they're attacked and they have to attack. And I get all the backstory from volume 2 and everything. But so why does he still do what he does? Okay. So maybe when Rocket says later on at the end of the movie, which is in the trailer, about how you don't want to create something perfect. You just don't like the way things are the way things are. So you just want to mess it up and try to make it better because you just aren't happy with yourself or whatever. Because he, of course, did the thing with the skin, which has been done before in sci-fi. I'm just saying. So I had problems with that. Then I had problems with, or I had questions about, so Adam Warlock is tasked by the High Evolutionary to go get Rocket.
No. He's tasked by the High Evolutionary to get Rocket because Rocket holds the key to.
Right, I understand all that, but he was tasked
to think.
Okay,
yes.
So he was tasked by. Okay,
so that's why he went to nowhere. That's why he busted through everything and he tried to grab Rocket. Yes, but
so
then he
later
got
on,
kind of he got shaken up and he bolted out of there.
Right.
After hurting Rocket to the point where he was going to die.
Right. Okay. I understand all that. So later on, when he flies his spacecraft into his mother's spacecraft or wherever she is, why does he do that? Why does he get upset with her at that point and decide to take her out of the picture? What's his motivation there? I couldn't follow that. You know what I'm talking about?
Maybe I don't remember specifically. I thought that he got away. Him and his mother were in that like counter Earth. They
Right.
were on counter Earth.
In the neighborhood.
I think he was trying to get to her, is what I thought. And she ended up blowing up, and he didn't get there fast enough.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's what I missed too, because I thought he
Yeah.
went after her for some reason.
No, I think he was worried about her, and she ended up dying. I'm assuming she's dead.
Oh, okay.
And then now he kind of is a man without a country type thing. So, and then instead of them, they bring him in. The reason why Adam Warlock's in it is because Adam Warlock is going to be one of the Guardians, and he's going to be a bigger part of Phase 5 or Phase 6 or whatever it is.
In lies the rub.
Yep.
In lies the rub. Then for me, as an audience goer, I need more of a motivation and more of a reason to add a character to a movie than what you just stated, which, by the way, is a spoiler on some kind of level.
Well, we're assuming that there's nothing written in stone.
Well, okay,
but still, I mean, well, shoot, I mean, if Will Poulter does something crazy and and they don't want to have him, in a movie, then they'll probably figure out a way around it. I mean,
unless they already made the movie and it's getting ready to come out.
Okay, Ezra Miller.
Your words, not mine. I don't know who you were referring to. I was referring to there. Anyway, so that. But can you understand what I'm questioning?
No,
it's
okay.
not a big question of like my existence and why am I here and who am I. It's not that. It's not a philosophy waiting to be written by some Greek philosopher. It's not that deep. But for me personally, as a movie-going audience, when you have something as fun and as popcorn-esque movie, which we stated before, that's not a criticism. That's just a statement. That's a good thing, in my opinion. It's fun to eat popcorn and go to a great movie that makes you forget about your life for 2.5 hours. But you still need to consistently go, this is happening because of this. This is happening because of that. If I'm off drifting away, wondering why Adam Warlock, 1, doesn't come back forever in the movie, and 2, why is he even here? And the thought is progressive, because whatever he's doing in the movie is still not adding up, regardless of what happens at the end or regardless of what we think might be happening in phase whatever they're on right now. It's an issue. My mind should be completely on the narrative or the spectacle of this film. When I'm starting to zing into different places and forgetting that I even have popcorn, then there's issues. I'm not saying I could solve them. I'm not saying it's a criticism. I'm saying, why did that happen in this film and not the other two?
Yeah, I think the honest truth is that every film adds more characters, number 1. And number 2, they've got more movies to tell his story. So they don't have to tell his story right now. We don't even need to know anything about him.
But you need to make it make sense in the story you have him in, though. You have to have an ultimate motivation for why the character's there. As drippy, cliche as "what's my motivation?" As an actor, it's the truth, though.
Yeah.
It's the truth. And I love the fact that he holds no time before all of a sudden the movie explodes. It's in the first 2 minutes, if that long, that all of a sudden you see Adam Warlock and he's flying through space. And I'm like, oh, cool. Now, I knew at the time he was a second villain, and I keep wanting to say Grand Inquisitor for some reason. The High Evolutionary was the main villain. I knew that, but I thought that was really great. We've been waiting to see this golden boy, literally. So what does he look like? How's he fit into this movie? And then all of a sudden, there he is in the first 60 seconds or however long it was. And I was like, yes, perfect. Brilliant. Now we don't have to wonder anymore. When is he coming? Blah, blah, blah. And then he disappears. And then his storyline is very vague and it's very thin. And it's like, why is he here? What is going on? So anyway, I made my point. My point is that I think that's unclear and that could have been clarified to a degree. And I actually think he wasted film real estate on bringing him into the film.
I think something tells me that there are certain requirements for each of these films that they have to, like certain beats that they have to hit, as a part of the greater whole of the MCU, and you can look at that as a detriment or you can look at that as a challenge. Like James Gunn probably looked at that as a challenge. Like, how am I going to integrate this into my movie? Because there are these 5 things that need to happen by the end of the movie. Whatever it is, some of the, well, let's get into spoilers. So we're doing spoilers now. One of the things that needed to happen at the end of the movie is that Peter Quill cannot be a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy anymore. That's it. Now he cannot be a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy because he's dead. He can do that because he's at home with his grandpa. He can do that for various reasons, but that was one of the things, probably due to contractual things. I don't know.
It's time.
Yeah,
it's time.
mean,
and they mix it up in the comics. It's like Suicide
sure,
Squad.
and
it's never the same team. So
and I mean that's great. That's something that's it's consistent churn that's built into this this setup, which is great for them because Chris Pratt's only going to be young or this age for so long. It's and the same thing with Chris Evans and with Rob Downey Jr. and all that stuff. So you just keep moving forward. So I don't have a problem with that. But there were certain things that had to happen, and then so there you have to set up the new Guardians. You have to set up that it's going to be Kraglin and Cosmo and Rocket and Groot and but like not Groot. It's like giant Groot or something. And that's going to be
which is the
setup.
opposite of what he is in the first film,
Of Baby
which
Groot,
is
yeah,
smart.
at the end
Yeah,
of
it's
the version,
smart. It's very smartly done.
Yeah. So that brings up another point that the payoff of these three movies for the Groot character isn't. I mean, it's the character, but his character hasn't. His character's kind of done one of these things where he goes through adolescence in the second one, and then in Infinity War helps out, makes the axe handle for Stormbreaker, all that stuff, and then by this movie he's mature, but at the very end of the movie we hear him say "I love you guys" instead of "I am Groot." Did you think that he actually said "I love you guys," or did you think that he said "I am Groot" and we as the audience can understand him? Because
well, I mean,
that's
I would love that to be what it was.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that's what their intention was, because I was a little disappointed they made him make sense at the end. I did like the fact that Gamora was like, "You're just making things up. You think you understand what he's saying, but you're just making, I know who you are." That's hilarious because that's old Gamora. That's, before Infinity and Endgame.
Well, and that's Peter Quill too at the very beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy. Why does he keep saying that?
Yeah, right. And then Thor, of course, can understand it, and he speaks it. We take it all, and we take a language in school. We take this language in school. Yeah, and so that's all funny. So no, I don't know. I was a little disappointed, but I also understood what they were doing. I understood that it was supposed to be us finally understanding him.
Okay. Yeah.
But what it should have been all along is we should have understood him whenever they said, "Oh, so you want orange instead of grape soda."
Yeah.
We should have said to ourselves, "Oh, of course he asked for orange soda." Like we should have, and our mind should be playing with that. So I don't know. I thought something about it disappointed me. I don't know. So I was like, "No, don't speak." Unless he cussed, unless he was the one with the F-bomb.
He did have the F-bomb in the second movie, because I don't know if you remember, but he says to Yondu, he says, "I am Groot," and then he says, "Welcome to the freaking family," except he didn't say freaking.
Right. But it would have been clever if those were the words you actually heard him say, although it was funny with that whole press push you're pushing.
Oh my gosh.
Now
that was
what?
the first F-bomb in an MCU movie. So,
not the first one written into a movie, the first one utilized in a movie.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them, like Aunt May seeing, when she sees Spider-Man, she's like, "What the f?" And then
I just saw an interview with James Gunn, and he went to Kevin Feige, and he said, "Okay, the F-bomb's in this movie." And he said, "I'll tell you what I told the Russo brothers. The Russo brothers wanted Iron Man to say, Iron Man." Right. And that would be the first F word in the MCU. And then he said, "Do you want to be remembered as the Russo brothers who made Endgame, or do you want to be remembered as the Russo brothers who had Iron Man on his deathbed say the F word?"
Yeah. His second to last word is a cuss word.
Do you want to be the directors who allowed that to happen? So he posed that to James Gunn. Do you want to be the director at the end of your Guardians run and he said, "Have you met me? Of course I want to be the director who has, the first F-bomb in the MCU.
Yeah.
So that's how it made it in. Well, let's backtrack for just a split second. I want to go back to a couple of things. Well, one thing in particular. This is an at-stake movie. Everything is at stake. And this is a just in the nick of time movie. Just when you think, you know, the Guardians just at the end come in contact with
The High Evolutionary?
yes, him. We got to come up with a nickname for him.
H.E.
Something, skin face or something. We've got to come up with something. Plastic surgery head, something. Anyway, he explodes and kills everybody in the room the scene before. But the Guardians come in and they just in the nick of time and get away with taking him out. Okay, so that's the movie that they're making. And I get that. But when you have Rocket's life at stake, you kind of feel more secure because she's already died. Nebula's come to a understanding with the audience that now we get her ever since the football scene in Endgame at the beginning of it. Groot has died and come back, if you will, regenerated. Drax is never going to die because he's cool as hell.
Well, even in this movie, Groot got blown up and turned into the Thing spider.
Yeah, right. Which I thought was a little bit of a he got blown up before or exploded before, and he had to start all over.
In the first movie,
yeah, and they had to start all over again, which was super cute. But I understand why they did what they did.
Yeah.
So if you're going to put Peter's life at stake or Rocket's life at stake, two of the most valuable, most loved characters in this universe, then kill one of them. Kill one of them. Take them out. And I don't want to sound like a insensitive human being. I'm not. Everybody see me cry. I just think they got away with it again. He survived again. He lived again. Rocket's living again. The medical pack didn't kill him. They didn't kill him. The doctors didn't kill him. The extra creatures with all the extra things didn't kill him. Nobody kills him, and he lives because he's Rocket. He's cool. I get it, but then kill Peter. Get rid of them like that. And I'm only saying that because they bring you to that threshold
multiple
4 or 5 times in this movie. And the payoff is so unsatisfying that one of them didn't get knocked off. I would have been sad. When I thought they were killing Peter, I was super anxious.
They almost Princess Leia'd him, huh?
Yes, really. You're just never, are you? You're just never. You're just like my best friend. You're just like my buddy in New York. He promised to never tell the story again, and that was 10 years ago, and every single time he tells the story of how we met, and I do not come across good in that story. Anyway, and I get that they have to bring Adam Warlock in to save the day, and that he is the guy who's going to bring Peter back, and I understand, but it would have been so much more satisfying because that's what happens to what's his name in the second movie. Yondu, right, who you see briefly, who, by the way, is in Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad.
He's in every James Gunn thing because he started off early with James Gunn, and he was also in, and then Nathan Fillion, too, because Nathan Fillion was in Firefly, which was like a big, like, I think it was a James Gunn, Joss Whedon. Was it Joss Whedon, too?
I can't remember. They're all interconnected. But, because Nathan Fillion is in the Suicide Squad too in the beginning of it.
Yes,
it's kind of funny stuff. That's kind of actually really funny, and they're all uber talented.
Yep.
So I don't have a problem with you casting Yondu in every movie you want to.
Sure.
I know that's not the actor's name, but
Michael Rooker.
Thank you. And so it would have been a good payoff and a follow through to what happened to Yondu in the second film. So why not? Why not get rid of? He's not coming back as Peter Quill.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think that they needed Rocket Raccoon to be the head of the Guardians of the Galaxy for now, and they needed Peter to be available for the end of Secret Wars or whatever the thing is going to be, the end of Phase 6.
I don't know anything about making movies. All I do is go to the movies. But if you're telling me that they're saving him for a possibility of him saving something at the end of one of the movies, to me it would be so much more interesting is, you know who would really think this through and make this work? Peter Quill. He's been dead for 10 years now. We can't call Peter. Mm-hmm. What do we do? Yeah. That's way more interesting than and it actually being Peter Quill, Chris Pratt. If you kill a main character,
celestial. So I think,
but I thought he gave up his powers when he killed Ego.
He did, of course, yeah, because then he loses his the ability to make the flame out of his hands, or the ability to control rocks to be in the shape of a Pac-Man guy. But I think that they really are. There's ways around that,
If you killed Peter Quill in this film, people would have been outraged in the best possible way. It would have been the talk of the town. It would have been, I can't believe they did that. Can you believe they did? Chris Pratt's the biggest star on the earth. Well, that's like killing Chris Evans.
Well, but I mean,
Chris Evans is probably not going to live much longer as that Captain America anyway. So,
well, he's done. Yeah, but I think that.
But according to what you just said, is he?
Yeah, because he's 80-something years old in the timeline. Like, he went back to 1940 whatever and started living with Haley Atwell.
But that's my point, though. If anything is possible with bringing Peter Quill back in the future, because we just said the reason why Adam Warlock is there and the reason why Rocket's story survives and the reason why he survives is to create this next Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes. What they probably should have done, in my humble opinion, is that in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, switch them up. They bring Yondu in as a second character in the Guardians, if you will, as a Guardian. But they should have switched him up probably in the second film, and then there would be a precedence for it, and then they could move on. It's not saving the world. It's not going to change anybody's world. I just think it would have been a braver choice, especially since you bring us to the precipice of that. The whole entire movie is based on, nope, he's alive. Nope. Rocket's alive.
Well, and now anytime anybody is in peril, you're going to be like, well, the 90% chance that they're going to live. I mean, they did kind of set a precedence with Infinity War dusting everybody. So
there you go. I was going to say, when Tom Holland dies or whatever happens to them in Infinity War, that had a major impact on people and a major impact on that character.
And it was a great moment in the movie theater.
Absolutely.
It was amazing.
So you're making my point. That's my point. My point is that I never wish for a character I love as much as Peter Quill to die. I'm not wishing him to die. I'm not wishing him to die in front of me. I don't like that. I hate when Frodo had to go across to the whatever river world or wetlands or wherever he went in the end of Lord of the Rings. That made me sad as hell that we're never going to see Frodo again. Frodo's not a real person, Paul. Yeah. But the point is that they made the choice that was right for the story. Well, I mean, of course, they made the choice that was right for the books on some level. But you have a choice here. And they kill comic book characters all the time, and they all come back. And the criticism is now, why are you going to kill them if you're going to bring them back? So now just don't kill them, because we know they're going to come back in one way or another. They brought 4 Supermans back when Superman died. Well, supposed Supermans, men. So I just think it would have been brave. I understand he's a national treasure, Chris Pratt is, and I understand Peter Quill is too. I understand that it's pretty dark to say I wish that a character had been killed. But really, it's the movie's fault that I think that way. They bring us right. Yeah.
There's no payoff. Yeah, there's no payoff. No, I get it.
Well, the payoff is expected. When he's touched by Adam Warlock and you know he's going to live, it's like,
and it's the painting. They're like recreating the painting.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying not to roll my eyes too much at people.
I don't know. I think that's winking. It's very winking. I don't
have a problem with that as per se. I mean, it's been done. Da Vinci's Chapel, isn't it?
Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo. Yeah.
Michelangelo. What'd I say, Da Vinci? I should be talking about these things.
Well, it's one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, you just got the wrong one.
See, that's the humor I'm talking about that's missing through the majority of this film. I mean, overall, I mean, these are, yes, they are major things to the way the movie impacted me when I was watching it. But is it going to change my life? No. Is it going to stop me from wanting to see these characters in the future? No. As a matter of fact, I've been reading a lot of comics recently and a lot of graphic novels. And they had free comic book day, so I went to the comic book store and I got a couple of free ones. And one of them happened to be the Uncanny X-Men. I don't know anything about the X-Men in print. And another one was a Spider-Man Venom series. And then there was another one with the Justice League. Anyway, they didn't have as many DC, so I got the 2 Marvel. And I read them and I enjoyed them. And I thought, well, maybe I need to venture into Marvel in reading Marvel comic books. And I'm like, well, where do I even start? You know, I even had a hard time starting again with Batman because it's so much now. And somebody led me through the maze and said, here, try this, and this. And they were absolutely right. Now I have a series that I'm reading, so forth and so on. The bottom line is that after the Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I was like, well, maybe I'll start reading the Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe I'll see where these precedences are set up, and maybe they'll make much more sense if I see them in the comics. It just did not flow as well as I thought it should have. And it's also a 2.5-hour movie, and it just does not need to be that long. There's too much going on for too long of a period of time that by the end of it, you're like, yeah, I could have gone with about 15 minutes less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I don't really have anything else to say. The music was good. I mean, they keep it going. They keep it in the 90s, and I
love how he goes to the 2000s
with Florence and the Machine.
That's great. Perfect song too.
Yes, definitely.
I saw them live.
Yeah, I think Crazy on You, the Heart song should have been in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, like, that's a perfect song for like kicking butt, you know? And and then in No Sleep Till Brooklyn, to me, you know, having the Beastie Boys in there is good, but it just didn't seem like a good like kicking butt. It's a good slow motion walk towards the camera song. That's what it's good at. And they did do the slow motion walk towards the camera song, but then they have that big long hallway fight, which is reminiscent of a bunch of different hallway fights. But I mean, you look at that fight and you compare it to, I mean, because they have to service every character and you're just CGing everywhere, and it's a lot going on. And then I don't know, it seemed like they should have switched it up to a different song. I don't know. But I mean, I like Beastie Boys in there. So, but they had some other like Flaming Lips and Radiohead. It's like, okay, I mean, those are 90s, but that's like, I mean, it's very emo 90s. But
yeah, and we're also used to still, that's, you know, our listening generations.
Yeah.
Like that's part of our world. And so it's a little less, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's not on the nose.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't expecting like Montel Jordan. I wasn't expecting like, this is how we do it. Like I wasn't expecting that, but I was.
Wouldn't be bad. Wouldn't be bad.
I mean, I don't know. I was, yeah.
The idea still works, but like most everything in this film, because of the other 2 films, if you will, we've seen it, we've done it. What's the new take on it? And so every single time it's a song with a montage or a song with a thing, a song with that. And it's clever up to a point, and then it's like, your mind is almost thinking during the next fight, what's the song going to be? Mm-hmm. Instead of being, oh, clever, listen, that was clever. Yeah. That was good. That was a good choice. Until Rocket goes to 2000.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I'm good. I'll shut up.
Well, I will use
because that was clever.
Yeah, I will use this as an opportunity to say that the best music that James Gunn has ever chosen is on Spotify, and it's called Meredith Quill's Ultimate Playlist, I think. And it is all of the songs that were in the running for Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 that just didn't make it in there. And there's like 50 of them. And we wear that thing out. Like we were like painting the extra bedroom, and we would just like play that and just like keep it rolling. And it's great songs. I mean, it's songs anywhere from Hall and Oates to, Heart actually was on, Barracuda's on there, so
Of course.
Yeah. So it's that kind of stuff. There's some ELO on there, but yeah, it's a great playlist, and James Gunn did make it, and it's not like necessarily like MCU, but it's definitely like a James Gunn playlist specifically for like the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's so well done. So that you should definitely check that out. If you
I want to end what I'm saying on my side with, once again, it's a fun movie. It's not hurting anything, and I was engaged, and I have some issues with it, but overall, I mean, if I watch it again, when I watch it again, I'm sure I'm going to have a good time filling in all of the little things that I had questions about. I'm going to be like, oh, I hope that there's an answer for this and that and this. But overall, it's fun, and I should not be overly critical, because life is like difficult sometimes, and last 3 or so years for everybody has been difficult. So a movie that is trying to tap into some emotional levels at the same time, blowing up funny looking monsters and have funny looking clever biosuits that Nathan Fillion's wearing. How bad could life be? So good for them. I'm glad that they made it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this group of characters moves forward, because I don't think there's a Guardians of the Galaxy 4 necessarily like on the slate, but that they're going to be integrated into Avengers movies coming up. So definitely won't be the last time we see this group of characters. So it'll be fun. All right. Well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. You can tweet us at actorengineer, and you can find us on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast, and we'll see you next time.